We're in a moment where a lot of politicians and people and media are telling you and telling us what issues are important. We thought, why don't we tell them what's important to us?
This is a tour that we kind of conceived of because we really wanted to hear from our community. What do you feel? What are you going through? What are the things that are keeping you up at night?
Today, we're gonna pass the mic to every single one of you for you to tell national media this is what we care about. This is a forum. This is about building community.
It was beautiful to just see the connective tissue between it all, of these women struggling or, persevering, but always kind of going above and beyond.
There's so much power in all your stories. And it begins by just raising your hand and speaking up. You belong in this political discourse.
Engaging our community and giving information that allows them to move past the barriers of access to voting is what works.
My story started off actually because my father was undocumented.
Thankfully, I am a DACA recipient.
I grew up there 3 generations. I will never be able to buy a house where I live.
She sat me down and she's like, Andrea, I don't condone what you're doing. And then me llevó a la clínica. She took me to get birth control.
To us to seize that attention, to seize that poder. We're done being the whatever sleeping giant. We are awake and we're loud and we're proud. Right? I feel so blessed to be here and to honor all of your stories. So whether it's laughs, tears, triumphs, failures, things that concern you, your experiences, your families, all is welcome here. Y se habla español también.
This is what it's about, these stories and these women, and just to see the strength.
We need to be heard. We need to be presente. We need to speak up.
Latinas in the house. Woo!
Thank you guys for being here, and let's start our conversation.
For many of us, the American dream, which is embodied in a house, in a home, may be unattainable in this state because of inflation. So I was looking at prepping for today, the median cost of a home in the Metro Phoenix area is $500,000. 70% of Arizona Latinos say that it's just that their jobs don't pay enough. But when it comes to Latinas, there's obviously an even bigger pay equity gap.
There is such a large pay gap between what we are paid with our worth and the amount that white women make, that black women make. So even within our own sex and our genders, we are not paid nearly on the same tier as other women in those same positions.
Latinas are paid 57 cents for every dollar a white non-Latino man makes.
I'm renting. It's almost impossible for me to live in Humboldt Park. I grew up there 3 generations. I will never be able to buy a house where I live.
It's the land of working at least 3-4 jobs where you're not going to be a part of your kids' lives.
Soy una madre soltera de 3 maravillosos hijos y créeme que para llegar hasta donde estoy ahora y quien soy ahora, tuve que sufrir por un devastador huracán llamado desalojo, donde el propietario me tenía viviendo en condiciones inhabitables. En el verano mis hijos y yo estuvimos sin aire acondicionado.
Wow.
Y al no poder constar con un abogado gratis por mi estatus migratorio, fue inevitable el desalojo. Muchas mujeres solteras luchan día a día para sacar sus hijos adelante y están siendo desalojados sin motivo y sin razón.
All of us, regardless of where we live, where we come from, how much money we make, we all deserve to be able to have access to clean water, to clean air, access to protection from this extreme heat that we're facing in our state.
It was a student named Juan. He had stopped coming to school, and in Arizona, if you have 10 consecutive days of not coming to school, we have to drop you, you get dropped. And so we went to do a home visit, find out what happened to Juan. He was getting good grades. Why did he stop coming to school? And he wouldn't look at me. And he kept looking down, and finally he said, "Miss, we don't have running water. I can smell myself. It's a matter of time before they're gonna make fun of me." So I said, if we open the school early, if we allow you to shower there, we'll give you a towel, we'll give you all the hygiene, will you come back to school? And we made it happen, and the reality is, if kids come to us from strong, functioning, healthy families, it makes our jobs easy. If kids don't come to us from strong, functioning, healthy families, it makes our work more important.
Everybody is valuable, and education is the cornerstone of democracy. And that is what made my dream possible. That is what made the American dream for my dad, who was out there in the Everglades and then became a carpenter and built so much of Miami, the infrastructure of where we live in. And I fight for working people, making sure that we have access to contracts and to adequate wages and healthcare and benefits, and making sure that we break cycles and that we give those people opportunities that they deserve.
Le estamos enseñando a las personas a luchar, a que no están solos, a que pueden defenderse, pueden conocer sus derechos y poder hablar, porque eso es alzar la voz nada más. Luchar día a día y darles a conocer a mis hijos que hay otra vida mejor. Mi hijo es principal honor roll y hemos estado en la calle, estoy muy orgullosa.
As the main provider for my family and switching those traditional roles, that is not enough to not only pay rent, but pay the utilities and ensure that my kids have equitable opportunities to their counterparts. It's not one thing to get them into the school, but it's also to give them that experience, to show them what the world is, to show them what it is to experience other cultures. And I definitely feel deflated in the economy because not only do I work a 9-to-5, but I have a nonprofit and I have a business that is trying to equip people with the skills, with tech skills for free so that they can uplift themselves into these careers. But once again, it's like, what's the point of offering these salaries and giving these people these things if we're going to cut them out of other opportunities like owning a home in the community that they grow up in? So that's why I want to be running for president, because I think it comes from passion.
We know Latinas are the CEOs of the household, right? We make all the decisions. We make all the decisions, educational decisions for our children, healthcare decisions, financial decisions. Sometimes we're taking care of mom and dad and we're taking care of the young ones. We are doing it all. And so we want to make sure that our stories are told, our voices are heard, and not only in voting and not only making sure you guys are going to go out and vote, but maybe even think about running for office. Yeah?
Yes! Poderistas! Yes! Is there anybody whose primary issue is abortion and reproductive rights? We have one person, two. Anybody who this is a second top issue for them? A lot of people in the room. Most Latinos agree that no matter my personal beliefs about abortion, I think it's wrong to make abortion illegal and take that choice away from people.
When the recession happened, what I had to do to be able to help my father, who had lost his job in construction, I had just become pregnant, and I had to make my own decision. Do I have an abortion? Do I keep this baby when I have to sustain my family? And so what I decided was that I had to have an abortion.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's very brave.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And it's not an easy decision, and often it's portrayed as selfishness. It's portrayed as, women being frivolous. But abortion is about self-determination, about being able to determine what we want to do with our lives.
The decision, if you want to have a child, is probably one of the most economic decisions that you can make. The vast majority of Latinas and women in Philadelphia who are having abortions are already mothers, right? They're making decisions about whether to put food on the table. And there's a larger issue that we need to talk about. This goes beyond the conversation of abortion. This is about birth control, access to IVF, miscarriage treatment, and ultimately the control of your body.
I was in high school and my mom found out I was having sex. And, she said to me, she sat me down and she's like, Andrea, I don't condone what you're doing. And then me llevó a la clínica. She took me to get birth control.
Because at least your mother had somewhere to take you.
See, she can't believe that her granddaughters aren't gonna have the same access to medical care that her daughters did.
This is about the health of our young people. Latinas are the largest group of women of color that are impacted by this.
Latinas are disproportionately affected. Black women are disproportionately affected. from access to regular health care. It's already so difficult. Now, try also adding a woman that is an immigrant that doesn't have access to even health insurance.
As immigrants, we are scared of healthcare. So trying to think of like, how can I go and get abortion access without having to be in fear? How can I go to the clinics and how can I go to the hospitals without my status being revealed or being questioned?
As a madre, as a daughter to an immigrant dad, a Boricua mom, as someone who's had an abortion too. 1, knowledge is power. And 2, calladita no nos vemos más bonita.
Women across the country, 6.7 million Latinas that are of reproductive development age, is that they don't want their rights being taken. At core, Latinas fight so hard to make sure that this additional right is not taken away from us.
We have this like incredible opportunity to go out and vote in November, to si se puede, that like Latinas can make the difference and we could really make sure that decisions are made between someone and their family and their doctor, and that politicians stop getting involved in these personal freedoms.
Why is there so much power in telling our stories?
Well, I think if you look at the media, you guys will agree we're always villainized because the most powerful form of media right now is news, and it's the loudest. And when you just watch news stories, you get a certain image of who we are, and it's not always accurate.
I migrated over here at a very young age. I was 5 with my mom. My dad was already here. It took 5 years for him to bring us over here through the residency process. So that was the first time I actually met him at 5 years old. Wow. It's really the struggle of immigrants and immigrant parents because there's constant hurdles and constant attacks.
When I came to this country, I assumed erroneously, like a lot of Puerto Ricans who grow up in Puerto Rico, that I was going to be one of them, right? You know, and I realized, thankfully, because I worked at a Spanish network, that I wasn't. I was part of a minority, and I was going to be judged as such. So I built my own community. And I remember my mother, which could be a very typical mamá puertorriqueña reaction, was like, pero ¿por qué tú no tienes amigos americanos? One is Mexican, Colombian, Venezuelan. And I said, because that's where I find my support. Yeah. That's where I find my community.
Nadie se va de su país por gusto. Eso es lo que siempre digo. Nobody goes through that if you don't have to. Your life and your children's life wouldn't depend on it.
Why are we not loving those who are seeking safety? Why are we not loving those who are coming here because they're being persecuted in different ways, whether that's an economic or a health or a climate thing?
I was a DACA recipient, and I'm still a DACA recipient, but it wasn't popular to come out. You know, my friend and I were one of the few people that we would basically be out there and protest for in-state tuition, you know, to allow us to go to school. And so I remember thinking to myself, I want to be that person that I wish I had. And I had the opportunity to work as an admissions counselor at Florida Atlantic University. And working there gave me the access to bring a bunch of people like me to the school. You know, having that opportunity to be there for someone, like I wish someone was there for me, it was a big deal.
In this city and this country, there are so many undocumented immigrants that have been living in this country for decades. Decades promised over and over again, we're going to get immigration reform, we're going to do this. And then we come out in record numbers to vote for the candidates. And then at the end of the day, there's other priorities y nunca llega la legalización, right? And our parents stay in the shadows while they watch their dreamer children and their U.S. citizen children, and they fight and they go to work every day. But remember this, when they get older, they don't have a social security number, so that they cannot ever get a pension.
I think of our parents so young with these dreams, right? Like a backpack full of dreams. And I'm getting a little emotional because I know a lot of our parents did that, right?
Yes.
And now it's our turn. We're beautiful women, right? And imagine what we can do now. But I feel like it all starts with knowing who you are and celebrating each other.
Instead of focusing on all the negative and the hopelessness, I focused on how do we help each other out, right? Because undocumented communities turn to each other for support and for resources. And so I focused on that, and I realized that's magic, right? I grew up always knowing that I have my community to turn to when I can't vote.
I stand on the foundation that my parents, my grandparents built. And so they taught me very young what it was to not just be an activist, but to be an architect of community, to build community, because the power lies in the people, right?
I think it's important to keep our voices loud and keep our voices present, because we are at the table now. Even if we drag that chair to the table, we're here.
If you're an immigrant who feels helpless, find your community, find your chosen family. And if you can vote, please vote.
Yes. Yes. That's incredible. Be the person that you wanted to see.
That's incredible.
We are all leading in being entrepreneurs. We're leading in going to college. We're leading in all these ways, but there's a lot of pressure. We are struggling with the pressure, because in some respects for Latinas, the model citizen, the model that's holding up the community, who's holding us up? What are the resources that we are giving and that we need? And what are the resources that we want?
After I graduated from the University of Houston, I had a really traumatic incident happen to me because it was just right after Hurricane Katrina, right after Hurricane Rita. People were displaced and all over the place. Crime was really high, and I had a home invasion happen to me and my mother, and we had no medical or mental wellness resources. I had to get out of there. I went back home to Chicago, where my people are, where my community is, where my cultura is. And then that same traumatic event, my mother didn't have any resources, and I lost her to suicide and mental wellness, suffering from lack of resources and substance abuse.
In my family, I've also dealt with suicide and with substance abuse, and it's so frustrating when you can't find the help that you need.
Yes. We have to get help, and we have to destigmatize what getting therapy means, what having mental wellness means.
We as Latina women are supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be resilient. And in saying that, we as women have to be looked at as strong. Mental health, it's put on the back burner because you're looked at as weak. So when me and my kids were homeless this last year, my heart was failing as a mom. Having a home was one of the things that can either break you or push you further. So here in Phoenix, you're told, okay, get on a shelter list.
That's crazy, Holly. This happened to you last year?
Yeah. Every single day was work, work, work to be able to buy a hotel. But how am I supposed to save money? What do women do in those situations?
Because if you're stressed out and economically, it affects your health. If you're worried about getting deported every time you walk out of your house, it affects your health, right? If you can't get your kid to a good school, it affects your health. And so all of these things play a role in it.
Having a son that's special needs and having to advocate for him, and having a profession and balancing that, it's hard.
As Latinas, what I witness is we take a lot on for other people, which you mentioned how, dealing with your own mental health becomes an issue.
I advocated for my son and I fought for him for years. I made sure that, I put him in the best schools. We moved out of the city and went into, we did all this stuff. And today, thank you God that he's independent, he works, does everything there. I'm like, the struggle was real, but it paid off,
And you're his Poderista.
Yes.
He's like, you're his champion.
Yes,
and you figured it out.
I have a daughter that has faced so much and is graduating despite so much against her.
You did it.
We have so many struggles within our own community that we have to be there and support each other. So thank you so much. You guys recharge my batteries from here to the end of the year.
First of all, if no one's told you yet, your voice matters, your vote matters. We cannot have our voices reflected in the system if we don't show up and use it.
Do not give someone the pen to write the beginning and end of your story.
It is important, if you are an ally and you can vote, to use that power to get out and vote and support your community.
We're an integral part of this country. We make up the fabric as well of this country.
So have her presence here, my presence here, this safe space that we've created for you, be a reflection about the fact that you belong in this political discourse. You have a voice, and it's such a powerful voice. We need the new, original, genuine voices that are gonna push our community forward. Are we gonna be those voices? Say presente! Presente! Are you gonna share your story and inspire other Latinas? Say presente! Presente! Are we gonna be the driving force of change this November? Say presente!
My message to our community is that the system is meant to work for people who can access the system. And we need the resources that can help our community access the system so that our voices get heard and so that the issues we care about, that we are most impacted by, we get to be a part of deciding who are the decision makers who are representing us.